welcome to the June 1st, 2023 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and let's take a roll call.
Commissioner Begor.
Here.
Vice Chair Sharon.
Here.
And Chair Stanek.
Here. And we have two commissioners not here. We'll move on to ceremonial matters and presentations. The subject is Parks and Recreation Department summer events.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Robert Kaufman, Recreation Coordinator, who's going to present this evening.
Hello, Parks and Recreation Commission. It's nice to meet you. My name is Robert Kaufman. I'm a Recreation Coordinator in charge of youth and teen programs and events. I am overseen by Mrs. Sonia Lee over here, Recreation Manager for Youth, Teens, Facilities, and Events. And we are here on behalf of Christina Lopez, the Recreation Coordinator for Special Events. All right, let me press this button. Perfect. Yeah, we're just going to go over the summer event schedule tonight. This is a preview of everything we're going to talk about. Didn't want to dwell on that too long because, we're going to talk about it. All right, so we're going to start the summer off with the Teen Summer Kickoff event. It's going to be on Sunday, June 11th from 1 to 3:30 p.m. It's going to be at Memorial Park Field and picnic area, and the goal is to give teens one last chance to socialize with their peers before summer hijinks ensues. We're going to have fun field games and mobile rec activities, and we're just looking to connect as many teens as possible before the year is truly over. After that, we're going to have our summer concert series starting up at Memorial Park on Thursdays from 6:30 to 8 p.m. The first is going to be June 15th with the Cupertino Symphonic Band, and then we have a whole slew of dates here, a whole slew of Thursdays with bands playing. One important thing to note before I jump off this slide, Arena Band on July 4th. That's actually a Tuesday. We just thought we'd mention Arena Band because, they're an important concert for us. And then this is the summer concert series continued. As you can see, we are going to be continuing throughout the summer until September 7th. After that, we have a new event that we're excited to bring to parents of Cupertino. This is called Parents Night Out. The idea is parents, leave your kids with us, and we are going to give them a fun, entertaining night of games, crafts, movies, and snacks. And then parents go ahead and enjoy a night together or a night alone, de-stress, have a date night, whatever you want to do. This is a registration, a fee-based program. It's going to be $30. It's going to be 6 to 10 p.m. on these select Fridays and Saturdays. And then this event, Cultures of the World. This is a program we're bringing back, and we are very excited to bring it back, reimagining it as a one-day event on Saturday, June 24th from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Quinlan Community Center. This is for kids ages 4 to 12, and we're just going to be showcasing some music, arts, and crafts and entertainment from different cultures around the world. And of course, we can't forget about our July 4th celebration. This celebration is broken up into a morning and an evening schedule. For the morning, we're going to have pancake breakfast at Quinlan Community Center. That's going to be ran by the Optimist Club. And then over at the memorial, we're going to have our flag raising ceremony. And then after that, we're going to direct everybody over to the amphitheater where they're going to see Arena Band play. And then in the evening, we have fireworks. We're going to have 3 viewing sites, the usual, Creekside Park, Sedgwick Elementary, and Miller Avenue. And then the fireworks are going to be fired off at Hyde Middle School. Hyde Middle, yeah. Okay. And then continuing on, we have Cupertino Campout at the end of July. It's going to be at Creekside Park on Saturday, July 22nd. It is an overnight event until Sunday, July 23rd. It is also a fee-based event, $25 per person. And the goal of Cupertino Campout is to provide a beginner-friendly environment for first-time campers or, families that just want to have a fun night out and, camp with their community. We're going to have some fun recreational activities like movies and s'mores. And then after that, kind of round out the summer, we have Shakespeare and movies. We're kind of waiting on the final adoption of the budget currently, but from our conversation on May 17th at the budget study session, we are planning on having Shakespeare in the park and movies to return this summer. Obviously, we have dates for Shakespeare. Currently, movies are scheduled for August, but we're working on getting them confirmed. Once we have those solidified, we'll talk about them more. We'll post them. But yeah, Shakespeare in the park. Here are these dates, and the show time is from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And I think that rounds out our summer, if you have any questions.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Vice Chair Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. That was a great presentation, and what a wide range of activities for all ages. We really appreciate that. So my questions are really briefly. You mentioned $30 for the Parents' Night Out, and I assume that's per event, correct? It's
Yes,
not,
it's going to be
for the whole
per
list.
registration,
Okay.
per event.
I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that everybody listening in knows.
Yes, yeah, no
that
problem.
for
Yeah,
all
it's
of
not
them.
like a subscription
Yes.
for the whole. No, yeah, per
Great.
person per event.
Great. My other question is, somehow I seem to recall in the past there was like a big blow up screen at Creekside Park for movies, and
Yes.
and it's now switched to Memorial Park for the same event, or is that
No,
just
sorry,
for the overnight?
The movies are probably going to be at Creekside Park again. We
Okay.
didn't showcase the movies on a slide because, like I said,
okay.
they're tentative right now in terms of the actual dates and movies.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll probably be at Creekside Park again, and it's it's the big blow up screen.
Okay, great. Well, people love it.
Yes,
so-
people love,
Okay, thank
love our
you.
movies. Yeah.
Those are my questions.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Begor?
When will we have the final budget to actually know whether Shakespeare in the Park is happening and or the movies?
That's a great question. I will defer to Mrs. Sonia Lee over here because she's turning her microphone on. So.
There we go. Am I on now? Yes. Okay. Could you repeat your question? When will we have the information about Shakespeare?
Yeah, at this point, Shakespeare is happening or tentative, and the movies in the park are unknown. So when will we know for sure whether we will have the two?
Yeah, so Shakespeare, we're committed to working with them to have the performances happen, and they are continuing to fundraise, so we're going to see where we end up there, but we're working with them to have the performances. And then the movies, we are waiting until after the final budget adoption.
Okay.
Great. Do we have any public comment?
There are no speaker cards, and if you are on Zoom and wish to comment on this item, please raise your hand. And no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, great. Is there any further discussion from Commissioners? Vice Chair Sharon.
I just wanted to make one comment, and that is I live near Creekside Park, and the overnight, it is incredibly respectful to the neighbors. And so as a representative of my neighbors, we really appreciate it. You got that event, even though it's an overnight and you'd expect there'd be a lot of noise and trash, and it's not. It's fantastic. So kudos to the staff for making it such a wonderful event for so many people and for the neighbors who live nearby.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That's very valuable feedback, and we love to hear stuff like that. Great comments. Thank you so much for having us, and have a great night.
Thank you for the presentation. It's delightful that, I'm delighted that we'll still be seeing a lot of these things. And it looks like the concerts have even expanded a little bit to more events.
Yeah, I believe so.
So it's great that we're still going to be able to have some community events, and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 2 on the agenda, approval of the minutes from May 4th. Are there any comments on the minutes? Do I have a motion?
I can make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the approval of the minutes.
Okay, let's have a vote.
Huh?
Motion carries with 3 yes and 2 absent.
Excellent. Moving on to our next item is postponements. I don't believe we have any postponements.
No postponement.
Okay, and oral communications. This is the portion of the meeting that is reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not on the agenda. Do we have any oral communications?
There are no speaker cards in Community Hall, and if you are on Zoom and wish to comment during oral communications, please raise your hand. And no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, moving right along. For written communications, were there any that needed to be included?
We only received 1 written communication over email, and that is for the Memorial Park item, and it'll be included in the record.
Terrific, thank you. Moving on to old business. The update on the community input and conceptual design progress of the Memorial Park specific plan project. And I'll turn it over to Jenny.
Yes. Yes, I'd like to introduce Susan Michael, our CIP manager, who's going to present this evening.
Good evening, commissioners. Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Susan Michael, the CIP manager, and we actually have a team of consultants that will be doing the presentation, but I wanted to start with an introduction. Can you share the presentation, Gates, possibly? Is it coming up? Looks like it's coming up.
Are you guys seeing it?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
excellent. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. So the purpose tonight is to present the findings that we received from the community input on the design alternatives. So we did come to this commission in February to give a progress report on the project, and you asked us to come back with the findings of that outreach before we went to council, and it has worked out that we were able to do that. We'll be going to council June 21st. And so tonight we're going to be presenting the findings of the input, as well as showing our progress on the design and asking for your input on that. So the first thing we'll do is some introductions, and then we'll give some background information about the project, and we will then go through the community input that we received and how that has resulted in the preferred design concept that we have today. And then we'll ask for your comments and questions, as well as go over our next steps in the project. So the team, tonight we have the Interim Director of Public Works, Chad Mosley, as well as Rochelle Sanders, the Director of Parks and Rec, who've been part and parcel of the project, and the Gates team, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, good evening. So I'm Casey Case. I'm the principal in charge on this project. And also tonight, you can hopefully see on your screen, Michael and Rebecca, also from our office. So we're all going to be talking to you a little bit about this project. We are a landscape and urban design firm in Walnut Creek, and we've had the pleasure of collaborating with the city of Cupertino in the past. And we really believe that in order to make a well-designed park, you have to consider the community and that ultimate end user, which is why we really believe in the inclusive process and community engagement. And we were really excited to participate in this master plan because we do like setting a long-term vision and feel like we have the understanding of how parks are built and used and maintained, so we can really put our heads together and come up with a great long-term plan. So with that, what we're talking about tonight is the master plan for the Memorial Park. You guys had a wonderful Parks and Recreation plan put together a little while back that proposed some awesome ideas to happen here. It's also fun to hear you guys talking about your summer programs and how many of them are going to happen in this park. So what we're talking about is that long-term vision about how we can make sure we continue to keep this an icon in our community and stay in line with that Parks and Recreation master plan to continue to make it a core of the city. So what we were really keeping in mind as we went through this effort was to make sure that we allowed it to continue to be a place for community gathering, civic engagement, and connection with nature. And throughout that process, we had these guiding principles in mind of making sure that it stayed connected in and of itself, also to the community and some of the adjacent amenities. We wanted to make sure it was mindful of shade, natural habitat, and really had a consideration for sustainability, its impact within itself and beyond it. In order to really put that long-term vision in mind, we went through a process that first evaluates what's there, what do we have? We evaluated professionally and throughout the community what's working, what's not working, and what do we want it to look like. Based on that information, we came up with 3 conceptual designs of ideas of what that master plan for Memorial Park could look like. Then we had a round 2, which was, of these 3, which ones do you like the most? And now we're here this evening saying this is what we heard for those first 2 rounds of outreach. Based on the 3 concepts we've come up with, this is the one we hope to move forward with. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Rebecca, who's going to talk through our community outreach process that led to our preferred plan.
Thank you, Casey. Thanks, Susan, all the commissioners, and the rest of the city team for having us today. So our outreach program was split into 2 rounds. The first round was called round 1, and we went out into the community with a survey online, with a pop-up event at several community events, large community events at Memorial Park. We did a webinar and some focus group interviews with targeted user groups and key community members in Cupertino. And we reached over 2,300 community members with this outreach through all the varieties of engagement. Next slide. And we have these concepts here. That this slide looks like it might be out of order. Oh no, I'm sorry. So after the rounds, we had our community focus concept A, a nature focus concept B, and a civic focus concept C. The concepts had some similar elements and some different elements. Community-oriented events, nature-focused amenities, and civic focused, a very event-specific in concept C. Next slide. And then in round 2, we took those concepts out to the community again to discuss what they liked about those concepts, what could be improved, what was missing based on what we had created from the round 1 outreach. And we went in person to an open house event at the Senior Center in Memorial Park. We also did another community survey online and showcased these concepts for feedback in an online forum in the webinar. And over 1,000 people engaged in round 2 outreach. Next slide. So what we heard from round 2 when we showcased the concepts was, overall, we asked, what was your favorite concept? And in the 3 sort of methods of outreach, these were the results that we saw. And in all 3 methods of outreach, concept A was the most preferred. That was a very community oriented. It continued to focus on the community spaces and a lot of other park elements. And then concept B was second in most of the forums, and concept C was overall the least supported. The most important features of the design, we asked, overall, what do you think are most important things to include in this concept? And in the online survey and in the open house, these are the top 5 things. There are some consistencies between the 2 and some differences. Overall, the online survey had much more participation, but the passive garden walk was the #1 element and feature of concepts for the online survey. It was very highly supported. We saw in round 1 that people are very interested in nature and maintaining those natural aspects of the park. And so this was very highly rated. An upgraded playground appears on both lists, also very highly supported. Restrooms are very important. Shade was very important. And the community is really growing more and more supportive of pickleball. We continue to see feedback that pickleball is important and not just shared, but actual dedicated pickleball courts. So these are some of the main important features. Next slide. These are the top favorite features of each individual concept as a whole. So there were some features that were only part of a single concept, like concept C was the only concepted feature relocating the amphitheater to a different location in the park. And that came up as the third most favorite part of that concept. But again, you can see the passive garden walk appearing in all three of these top lists. So that is telling us pretty strongly that that is something we want to make sure to include in the final concept. Next slide. Some other key takeaways, we talked about the most supported elements. These were some of the least supported elements, not to single them out for their lack of support, but in case you're interested, the softball field was the #1 least supported feature for the final design. So that feature was only maintained in concept B. So the other two concepts had that feature removed and replaced with other items. The interactive cultural exhibit area in concept C was not well supported. Relocating and expanding the amphitheater was supported highly in that concept, but overall it was not. And dual use tennis and pickleball was not as supported. The community really wants those uses to be separate. They received the highest total survey votes against when asked, what is your least favorite feature of this concept? So this is active negative opinions. And then in the write-in comments of the survey, there were a lot of popular topics. Again, these same things. Pickleball was very popular. The softball field came up in the write-in comments. People saying, we think it's not a highly utilized aspect. Sustainability, shade, parking, nature, dog park. All these were write-in comments in the survey. Next slide. And I'm going to hand it off to Michael now to talk about the preferred concepts.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. We spent a lot of time going through all this site inventory and community outreach, and we had a great time trying to take all this information and putting it together as one concept. So concept A was the most preferred concept. Concept B came in second. And so you can kind of see overall here that we aim to integrate the two. We could pull certain elements that were preferred and make one single preferred concept plan. Some of the elements that I just want to reiterate that are remaining in place that we're not necessarily touching or moving is the Veterans Memorial, the gazebo, the Senior Center, and the Quinlan Community Center. And as we move through this design, we are at a conceptual level. So as we approach this conceptual design, we try to understand what elements make sense in these locations. Do we want to shift certain elements overall just to provide a cohesive park for the community? And like I said, this integrates a well-rounded use of recreational activities and trying to integrate a lot of the natural and open space that we heard from the community outreach. Next slide, please. And so I'm going to walk everyone through kind of as a user of the park. And as we start on Stevens Creek and Anton Way, you'll notice a new parking lot. That was something that we heard greatly from the community, that we need more parking. So we situated the parking lot away from the residential area along Anton and Alves, and situated next to the tennis courts to keep that movement along a consistent moving area. And as you enter the park on #1, we've expanded the lawn to accommodate all these great activities and events that we saw earlier that the city is hosting. This not only acts as an event space, but acts as an open space for children or other community members to run around, throw a frisbee around, just have some open space play. And as you step back for a moment on this overall concept plan, you'll see that there are kind of 3 main parts to this concept plan. We'll start in the bottom half along Stevens Creek, the central part by the amphitheater, and then moving all the way north towards the tennis courts. There are a lot of elements that we are incorporating into this conceptual plan, as we heard from the community. So providing clear direction and pathways to connect these spaces really gives the community a great space to move around and connect with all these amenities. As we stick around to the senior center, you'll notice a large round circular path. We've included some additional amenities, including the bocce court, some fitness stations, and expanding the senior center deck. Expanding the senior center deck not only provides additional space for the seniors to use, but pulling some of these additional elements like the bocce court towards this area is, I think, most supported by the more of the elderly population. One element that we heard from the community outreach was to have more playgrounds. We want 2 playgrounds. We want to upgrade these elements on the site. And so number 6 was the nature playground. That was a very well supported element on the community outreach. So we've moved this towards the outside edge of the lawn to act as have secure border and really have this integration between the event lawn, the adjacent parking, so there's ease of accessibility throughout the site. And of course, there's an existing restroom located where number 3 is. We want to upgrade that, make sure that's usable for all users, and really have that stand out so people know where they are. And as you continue along the spine through the park, this leads you towards the north. Along the spine, we have the Veterans Memorial number 8, remain as is. And on the right, the amphitheater will remain as is. Relocating that was not a highly supported option, but we are upgrading that. We want to make sure that it's ADA accessible, upgrading some of the infrastructure and providing shade, especially on those hot summer days when we have those events occurring and concerts occurring. We want to make sure people are shaded. You notice that the lawn has expanded through the center of the park, again, promoting the events that occur in this park and providing some of that nature open space. As you come along the spine on number 11, the passive garden space was a highly favored amenity. So we were able to integrate this along the edges of the park, providing meandering paths, additional shade, and picnic areas within that zone. And then continuing towards the what we previously called the multi-age play area, this is where we have the expanded play area, a 2 to 5, 5 to 12 area, really a robust play area where kids of all ages can come and enjoy this park. Restrooms, as I mentioned, were highly desirable. There are currently only 2 restrooms within the park on the south and north side. And so we're adding an additional restroom as a central, node connecting the parking lot, the lawns, and the playground. So as you enter the site, there's an obvious opportunity to use the restroom and connect that to this multi-age play area. Within this circle, you kind of tell that we've grabbed the same concept that we saw in concept A, where you have an opportunity to walk around the entire site and pick and choose where you want to go. You can just have a lounge walk around the site and then start entering these spaces where we've provided a dedicated pickleball court on the north side. This was, again, a highly wanted amenity. And so we've grouped this together with the tennis courts because it is an active zone. We want to make sure that stays away from more of the passive zones that we see on the south side. And number 14, adding a basketball court. The basketball court was not something that we asked specifically, but it was something that we heard within the write-in comments from the community. A basketball court, a volleyball court, this area has opportunity to have certain or other recreational amenities if needed, but the space is given to expand. On either side of that space, we have reservable picnic areas. There's a current picnic area on number 18 on the right. So we want to enhance that, upgrade that, provide more shade and seating opportunities. And we've added an additional reservable picnic space with shaded canopies where the softball amphitheater used to be. So having these 2 connection points are, I think, a good location against this active space. So users can come in and out and then choose where they want to go and enjoy the park for the day. Continuing north, within this active zone, keeping this highly used area, we've incorporated a off-leash dog park. Again, this was something that we've heard talking with the community, some of the elements input we got within the survey. This zone fits right nicely in between the pickleball court and tennis courts. This will be a fenced off-leash dog park. So, dogs don't have the opportunity to run into the playground or into the reservable picnic areas. Number 17, we'll have the tennis courts remain as is. Keep those dedicated. I know those pickleball players will like to have their own dedicated course number 15 there. And a restroom on number 3 on the far left will remain as is while being upgraded. As we move to the right towards Quinlan, we want to maintain this lawn again for events and those teen events that we saw coming out for the summer, but enhance these edges, provide more shade, more seating opportunities that we don't necessarily see on the site plan right now, but understanding that we want to slightly decrease the space just to activate the edges of this park and engage the community as they come in, sit, and watch what's going on. Lastly, on number 19, we want to upgrade the Quinlan courtyard, provide additional shade and seating amenities. Next slide. Another design idea that we were working with was the opportunity to bring in bikes into the park. And our first concern was, how do we keep pedestrians and bikes safe? That is our main priority coming to this park. We want to make sure that users are safe at all times. So looking through the bike transportation plan, showing the connections from Alves to Mary and Mary to Christensen, understanding how can we best keep bikes and pedestrians moving through the park. So we've provided class 1, which is a 12-foot wide bike lane, dual use for pedestrians and bikes through the north and south end, and then connecting a 20-foot wide path from Alves to Mary to that 12-foot wide path. And we want to make sure we incorporate safety elements, traffic calming measures, identifying where bikes can pass, where pedestrians can pass, so that as you move through the site, prevent any type of collisions and keep everyone safe. One element you'll notice on the bottom left by the senior center area is the parking lot. That is an area that we want to ensure there is safe protection for everyone. So we are shifting this parking lot slightly north to expand the pedestrian crosswalk and allow bikes to move freely through, again, providing traffic calming measures. Next slide, please. And looking through more of the site plans, you'll notice that this is just an enlargement identifying some additional elements that we heard that weren't necessarily shown on the overall site plan. One element that stands out here is the educational garden zone that was liked very much in concept B. You'll notice that as we go through some of these enlargements, these are kind of scattered throughout the site, incorporating some of these elements along the edges to help activate the park. And as a expansion of that senior center deck, providing additional connections on shown on icon 12 there, just allow opportunity, knowing that the development occurring across Murray Avenue has a large elderly community coming in and allowing that circulation to flow through and providing some of the amenities like the fitness stations and the bocce court for those users to come and use the park. And you can see up there on number 12 on the top left, that is where we'll have the expanded and widened circulation path to accommodate that traffic going through. And next slide, please. And we come to the play area to the north. You'll notice as we start from the bottom, that spine is connecting you through a wide path, and you have the opportunity to have a little bit more fun, run around to the lawn on the right, where we keep the gazebo shown on number 11 there. That becomes a picnic area, shaded picnic area, and just north of that is another educational garden zone. And just highlighting some of the elements that we see within the passive garden walk on number 7 and 9. These are meandering paths where we have additional trees to enhance that nature feel within the park, some shaded areas so people can enjoy some time to themselves or watch users using the lawn or the rest of the park. And you'll see here some of the additional elements that we included, the restroom. And one thing that we have to keep in mind is the cell tower number 14. This has to remain within the park. So working around this has been challenging, but we were able to accommodate all of the request elements that we saw on round 2 and incorporate this into the multi-age play area. And that concludes the enlargements and a review of the site plans.
Thank you. So we still have an ongoing project website that we keep up-to-date information of our latest plans and when we have public meetings available. So that's at the engagecupertino.org/Memorial Park specific plan. We are still interested in hearing from people if they have comments, and if there are public comments this evening, we'll still have an opportunity to integrate those into our preferred plan. Where we are going next is we will be allowing the environmental part of our team to be reviewing this master plan to see if it has any significant impact. And we'll be working on our master plan document in the meantime to provide a roadmap to the city for how we can integrate this long-term vision into the future community of Memorial Park. So with that, I will pass it back to you guys if you have any questions. I'll stop my screen share, but if at any point in time you want me to pull back up a graphic, please just let me know.
Okay, thank you so much. There was so much information in all of the graphs and the feedback and the data that was provided in the package. And so I know that was a lot of work to get through. Just before we move on, I just wanted to have you reiterate one more time the goal for the commission tonight.
If I may.
Thank you, Chair. The goal tonight is to provide feedback. We don't have an action per se. It is simply to, having seen the design concept, to provide feedback on that. And know that from here we will do the environmental review and finalize the design after we get feedback from this commission. And we're also going to council on June 21st. So there will be an approval circle at that time. This isn't, we don't need to have an official approval at this time.
Okay, great. And to keep us on track, I thought one of the things we would do, and it's probably not necessary, but we'll just try it tonight, is we will be giving 5-minute time periods per commissioner for questions, and then later 5-minute time periods for discussion. And there's only 3 of us tonight, but at least that will keep us moving along. So why don't I open it up for questions from the commissioners? If you have a question, please push your button. Request to speak.
Oh,
that
which
one.
This one. Every month I need. Every month I need a training on these buttons.
Commissioner Bacor.
I was going to say, can I speak? So very, very, very interesting presentation. Thank you very much. That was a lot of work. It's like putting a puzzle together. You took all the requirements and fit them, you know, dog park here, a little thing there, which is very great. My questions are more general. First of all, I hadn't heard of pickleball before, but it seems to be catching on. What is happening in other cities, just as a point of interest? Is it popular? What's going on? I don't play, it doesn't mean that nobody else should, but I was just asking how, you know, it suddenly caught on.
I'm happy to answer that
Sure.
if you guys are interested. So we are working on a couple of other park and recreation master plans with different communities, and it's very popular. It has been, for the past several years, additional striping that's been added to tennis courts, but it's become so popular that that shared use is no longer accommodating the demand. So we are seeing many projects and many calls in communities for additional pickleball. And my personal observation is it's extremely fun, number one. And number two is it's not quite as high intensity. So it seems that the age range it's available to is broader. So, you know, my 8-year-old as well as my 80-year-old father are playing. So it's pretty cool. It's fun. So we think it's a great thing to be integrating into recreation opportunities.
Okay. All right, that was a very general question. Going back into some specifics here, can you describe a little bit about what you're doing to the senior center parking to move it north? I mean, there are some apartments, I believe, there that come in the way. So how are you actually moving the circle? Just, can I look at that picture again?
Yes, I'll pull that up, and Michael can, I think Michael's the one who wants to answer that, unless Susan would prefer.
Michael can answer that.
Okay, let me pull that up.
There's
Sorry, guys.
I know there's a pinch point, and so we're really trying to keep a safe driveway, safe pedestrian path, let the bikes come through and not have it all crunched together.
That's right. That's why I was trying to see how exactly that's going to happen,
Yeah.
because it can be very tricky otherwise.
And,
Okay.
and keep in mind, this is all conceptual. It's very early, so we won't be working out the details per se on this.
Casey, if you flip back to the overall site plan, it'll be easier to
Is it the
illustrate
bike one? Which one's easiest?
with the labels.
With the labels. So the first one. This one?
No,
I'm
next
sorry.
one.
This
Yes.
one. Got it. Sorry. Thank you.
Yep. So as Susan mentioned, that is a pinch point currently for pedestrians, and we want to ensure pedestrian safety and also ensure that bicycles can come through the park. So as a way that we do that is expand that crosswalk to approximately 12 feet and have it a raised crosswalk. So pedestrians are the prime mode of circulation where cars have this visual barrier. Doesn't impede their movement. And so what happens is that as soon as we expand that crosswalk to the north, that the parking lot has to shift to the north. And you'll see just below number 20 there, those two new trees. There are currently planting islands that are about 20 feet or 20 feet so wide. So we're essentially just reducing that a little bit to allow this parking lot to shift north. Okay. So the quantity of parking stalls remain as is. Everything just shifts about 10 to 12 feet north.
Okay. All right. So if you put that bike path back, if you give me the picture of the bike path for a second. So the yellow circle, that's the expanded part, and then those two, yeah. So I'm trying to imagine it. I've been to Memorial Park a few times, so it's kind of a very small, tricky area. So we're actually losing some parking on the senior center side? Is that how it is?
No, we are not.
Okay. So where will you get the extra space from?
From the, let's see if I can annotate on here. I cannot, but the parking lot directly north of the yellow circle is the parking lot that is shifting. We're not reducing parking stalls.
Okay, so you're
we're just
moving
shifting.
that. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Vice Chair Sharon. Vice Chair Sharon.
I want to echo the comments of Commissioner Berger. It's great. And there's just so much data here. It took me a long time to go through before this meeting. So I just had a couple questions. One is following along, again, from Commissioner Berger. I was wondering where the plan was to have bike racks in the park, because obviously we want to encourage active transportation to the park. Where were I didn't see that anywhere called out.
At this stage, we're still highly conceptual, just understanding programmatically how the park will work. Ultimately, as part of this report and master plan, we will be providing recommendations of where to put and install bike racks, and those will ultimately be shown on some of the enlargements as part of the full package of this project, just not currently shown on this package, as we want to focus on some of the bigger picture items.
Okay. I find that interesting. It's a smaller picture item in that we're going into great detail on some of the interior things, because obviously we need to make sure that people can get to the park easily and park their bikes. The second question I had was there were in the comments. I read through all the comments. And several of the people said there should be more encouragement for parking at De Anza instead of adding more concrete to the park. Was that considered in any of this? Instead of adding more concrete to the park, some sort of encouragement to cross Stevens Creek Boulevard to park across the street versus in the park?
If I may. Thank you. That is, I think, in a way, it's a concept that we've discussed. The implementation of it will be a kind of a longer term, outside of the design scope in a way. But it is definitely on our notes of how do we address that? But it'd be more policy and other relationship, I believe, methods.
Okay, great. I think those were my two major questions. Everything else is a comment. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I have one other question. Okay. How much in deciding which amenities were ultimately chosen was the consideration of duplication with other parks? Obviously, we seem to have sort of a deficit of pickleball courts, so I could see that. But for example, the basketball courts, we just built a brand new one that's about to open in Wilson Park. Plus, we have in a variety of other parks half-court basketball amenities. How was that figured into what ultimately was added to the design?
If I may, thank you.
Sure.
What do you have against basketball?
I'm tall. What do you mean?
Actually, I think at Gates, you might, if you want to speak to this. I mean, we really did follow the master plan and what is recommended in the master plan.
Okay.
And then from there, the survey from people and what they've asked for. So I think you can see there was a great deal of consideration by Gates' team, and I will say once again, they've done an amazing job getting us to this point and taking the data and trying to make it into something that, coalesce all the facts into what makes sense to move forward. So I believe they're following the data. So I don't know if Michael and Casey and Rebecca, if you want to mention if you want to respond to that in any way.
No, that's correct. Yeah, some of these elements that what we see here, just like the basketball, pickleball, were a significant amount of write-in comments requesting these items specifically, and touching on other amenities that we see in other parks, a softball field that is obviously not here anymore. Those activities are shifted at other parks within the community.
Okay.
Through the chair. Sorry. Through the chair, just a quick point of clarification, just because you did bring up the half courts. In the master plan, it does state full courts also. So that is a piece of the having a full court and not
Another
just
full
counting
court.
all the
More full
half
courts. Got
Correct.
it. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of my questions, and this may be outside the scope, but if the softball field is removed, what are our plans to provide for that amenity around Cupertino and another park?
I will say that, if you don't mind, we are once again responding to the input that we've received, and that gotten to the point of maybe the softball field isn't as popular as we originally thought to put it there. I don't think we've gotten to the point of considering, well, how do we meet the needs? I mean, the scope of the project is
Right, I understand.
And I think that's a Parks and Rec future item.
So that may be more of a comment
If we get there,
Then, I mean, because I know that those people who, the seniors who use that softball field are very attached to it, but there aren't that many of them, so.
Correct. So for anything that's during the day like that, so like the seniors, the geezer leagues, they have other options at other parks that they can go to. So we don't feel that we are taking away that opportunity for them, because we do have softball fields at Monte Vista, we have softball fields at other areas. The softball field at Memorial Park, besides people who come that we can't necessarily count because we're not just standing out there watching people, is only used 15% of the time. So for people who are renting or people who are using it for programs, it is not a well-used space. Some of the other uses may be people having their dogs off leash, which obviously a fenced dog park is a possibility in this plan. So we feel like we have either another option for people who are truly playing softball or other areas in the park that some of the people use it for that they can use.
Okay, thanks. And this is also going forward in the next steps for some of the more details, like when you get to the actual design of the passive garden walk or the dog park, will we be getting more input of what we really want to see in that? I mean, this is where it would be conceptually, but in terms of the details, when would the appropriate time be, and when would the community be able to weigh in on that?
If I may, I believe that this will develop basically a schematic design and say we'll probably have a 15,000 square foot playground in this area, but the specifics of that will come when the project is funded and approved for implementation. And I think that there will be plenty of time for input on the specifics.
Okay. Yeah, because for the dog park, it looks like it's maybe a dirt park. It's not green. It doesn't have grass. So, I'm sure that the dog community will have thoughts about that. But now is not the time, and so we want to make sure we do things in the right order. How many pickleball courts would you expect, or is that too detailed to ask?
They've drawn 3 at this point. Yeah.
Those are 3 individual courts.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, I think that's it. And just to comment on the vice chair's question about basketball courts, it was huge in the master plan. Mm-hmm. So many kids are playing basketball, and they want more opportunities and adults too. It's a pickup game that they'd like to do. So we saw a lot of interest in that. So it's really nice that even though that wasn't initially thought of, that we see it here, and that just brings people out. So I'm glad to see that. So I'll close the questions for commissioners and see if we have any public comment on this.
If you wish to comment on this item on Zoom, please make sure you raise your hand, and we have no speaker cards in Community Hall. And just a reminder to please have your hand raised by the time the first speaker is done speaking. So right now I see 2 hands raised. The first one is San R, followed by Lisa Warren. And welcome, San R.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you to city staff and Parks and Rec for a wonderful presentation on the Memorial Park planning. I also want to commend them on the many study sessions they've conducted on this. I was actually at the senior center to give input along with my family as well. So glad to see all of the input being factored in. I don't envy their job. It's a really tough job. I'm speaking tonight on a couple of specific things. Firstly, I would like to request that the pickleball courts be placed as far away from the tennis courts as possible. As a tennis player for over 40 years, and as a player that organizes 4 days a week at the sports center for about 40 members, I can tell you that pickleball is extremely distracting for the tennis players. It's extremely noisy. We support dedicated pickleball as long as it is not overlaid on the tennis courts. But I would request you to please consider separating them as far apart. As you may know, tennis is a difficult game. It needs a lot of concentration, and a lot of noise right by the courts is counterproductive to the game. So request you to consider keeping the pickleball courts as far away because of noise reasons. On similar lines, I'd like to request that the fenced DOLA be kept away from walkways. Because what happens is, even though it is fenced, you may have dogs that linger around outside on the walkways, and it becomes difficult for people to be able to pass through. So if you can consider moving any fenced DOLA as far away from walkways so that there is no risk to pedestrians, because there are dogs that got out of the fenced area and put pedestrians at risk, as well as the noise factor from the DOLA as well. The dogs can get fairly excited. The tennis courts are really a quiet area today. I don't know if any of you have been there. It's a quiet and one of the most beautiful tennis courts we have across all the city parks. So appreciate if you might keep the tennis patrons in mind and keep the courts quiet and keep the pickleball as well as DOLA away from the tennis courts if you can. I think all of the others are great ideas. I support going by the data, so please don't bring in new items that are not in the data. And a basketball court at Wilson Park does not replace one in Memorial Park. The city is fairly wide apart, and people in the west side of Cupertino cannot travel to Wilson Park to play basketball. So appreciate city staff keeping residents in this area in mind. Thank you very much.
All right, and next we have Lisa Warren, followed by Deepa, and I actually see 2 Deepas listed, so I will call on both of them. I'm not sure if one is one and then the other one, so I will call on both. But welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. And so thank you, Rebecca and Michael, for spending so much time speaking to me at one of the outreach events. And really, I felt like they were really listening, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate Chair Stanik's question about the loss of the softball field, because the event I was at, most people wanted, well, one of the events I was at, most people wanted the softball field to remain. There was a misunderstanding, I think, in previous meetings where softball versus baseball, they're different fields. I do recognize and know that there currently, but it could change, at Monte Vista Park is a softball field, but to my knowledge, that's the only other softball field, and it's in the far west side. So I am expecting this softball field at Memorial Park to disappear, but I just really want to emphasize that it's important not to let any more disappear, because we only have one other that I'm aware of. And, you know, what's going to happen there? And what will the next reason be for getting rid of that? So that being said, I'll go more positive now. So Michael, I think you answered Vice Chair Jennifer Sharon's question about bike racks, that's not in the detail right now. I'm just wondering if the same is true of enhanced entrances, which were sort of everywhere on every edge of the property. My concern is the cost of some of these things. And I know shifting a parking lot is probably very costly. And is it worth the money spent to do that if the money could be spent with true elements that people are more concerned about? That's just a basic question. The city's in financial trouble. This has been a long process when money was there and now it's not. So the budgeting of this needs to be really well discussed. So if the parking lot is just sort of an off thing, I think the amenities are far more important than the parking shift, because I know what that can cost. I know what people claim it costs.
15 seconds.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not going to have time to finish all my comments, but thanks again. And the entrances, the enhanced entrances are, again, more money for something that's probably not as valuable as what people really want to use.
All right, and I will allow the next speaker to talk, and this is welcome Deepa.
Hi, actually, my name is Padma. I got the link from the other Deepa who's going to speak after me, so sorry about that. I am here to speak on behalf of Dola, and I'm a 12-year-old dog owner, and he is my life, as are all the dogs for the other people. And I heard somebody say about the softball field potentially being converted into Dola, and yay, more power to you. If that is the case. And our dogs will totally appreciate it, because they can say it. I will say on behalf of them, thank you. And we do like the grass a lot. Instead of making it a dirt thing, the dogs enjoy rolling around in the grass a lot. They are the happiest when they do that. That's all I had to say. And thank you very much for considering Memorial Park for Adola. I don't know how to take myself off.
All right, and I will allow the next one, and welcome Deepa.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Again, one of my favorite commissions in Cupertino. mostly because I do use the Cupertino parks a lot outside of an extremely busy life in technology world where we are stuck indoors. The park is the one place I love to go with my 11-year-old dog. And I've been an advocate of DOLA since 2017. So you probably all heard me enough times. Thank you so much for adding DOLA to the plan. I am representing about 61 dog owners who have a Memorial Dog Group, which will become Memorial DOLA after it officially is supported through the plan that you're putting together. I like the idea of fencing. This is a major budget project, so if it can be fenced in, great. My one ask, I will reiterate what Padma had stated, that please keep grass there. Don't make it another Mary Avenue Dog Park, which is dirt and very dirty. It leads to all kinds of allergies, and then we are stuck with cleaning the dogs after they're done, and it's useless during rainy season. So please make sure there's grass over there. The trees will add a lot of value, so we have no issues. The area you have identified is a little narrow, but we will kind of work with it and be happy so long as it's long and allows the dogs to kind of play and run free. So first, thank you. Thank you for keeping that in mind. And I, again, am representing 61 plus, Memorial Dog Park Memorial Dog owners who use Memorial Park right now. Not yet official. I do want to quickly address one of the other person's comments around keeping things away from the pathways and keeping, everything away from the tennis parks. The reality is this is shared area. There is limited area, and you guys are doing a fantastic job of trying to ensure that you're meeting the requirements of so many varied people. So thank you so much for that. It's going to be really hard to identify another area which is going to be safe for the dogs and less noisy for the tennis players and stuff. If somebody's been playing tennis for 40 years, I've been a dog owner for 11 years. So we all are equally passionate about our hobbies and our interests. And thank you so much for taking care of that. As far as being close to any pathways, regardless of where you find a location for DOLA, the reality is it's built on the nature plan, I think. The concept that was most popular, there are going to be pathways everywhere.
15 seconds.
Regardless. So I don't think there's a way out of that one. The DOLA is going to be close to some pathway or the other. Thank you again for considering DOLA. Yay for you all and yay for us. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And we do have one last speaker. And welcome, Nori.
Hello. Thank you for choosing concept A and added various attributes from other concept in order to make it most desirable design. I'm glad that the blended concept design can meet everybody's interest. I'm also glad the design team removed the underutilized softball field and added various amenities. About the playground. The current too small unsafe playground located to the one large safe playground there, so it should be much bigger. The current the slide shows the playground looks very small, and the new playground should be all-inclusive playground for children for all ages and all abilities, physical and cognitive disabilities. And play area should be soft rubber ground, not the current wood chip or lawn, and wheelchair access. And the second, individual pickleball court. Pickleball is getting very popular, but this high-pitched loud noise bothers some people. Please locate the pickleball court away from the playground so that the noise does not bother some sensitive children, even adults. Tennis noise level is about 40 dBA. Pickleball is about over 70 dBA, which is considered disturbing level. humans should avoid over 80 dBA. 90 dBA is dangerous level. The third, basketball, this is good idea for everybody. And the large area for passive garden walk is great idea. And another one is improve amphitheater. It's great, great. And please add wheelchair seating area when you upgrade the amphitheater. Memorial Park is easy access from Stevens Creek of 85. Therefore, many families can visit from other cities. This is good for small businesses like restaurant, ice cream shop, coffee shop. It's very, very
15
great.
seconds.
Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you. That closes the public comment on this item, and we'll bring it back to the commissioners. If you have any discussion or additional comments, please put your light on. Thank you, Commissioner Vergor. You may make your comments.
Okay, the presentation was definitely, very interesting, and I understand it's completely in the concept stage. One of the things that is of concern to me when we look at something like DOLA, and mind you, I am a dog owner. I have been a dog owner since I was 5 years old. So if anything, I love dogs as much as the next person who's on DOLA. The concern I have is that if we have a DOLA without a fencing, and that's been my statement all along since I've been on the commission, that if you have a DOLA, you have to have a fencing. Because most dog owners are responsible owners. There's a few crazy ones. And it only takes one dog to be out of control to create havoc in many people's lives. So I would like to recommend that when we should have DOLA. It seems to be very popular. Apparently there's 61 people who want to be part of that, but we have to take that into consideration that the DOLA cannot be there, be that Jollyman Park or be it anywhere else, without a fence. And it has to be, people have to have the sense to keep their dog on the leash till they get to the DOLA area. I have seen any number of, oh, my dog will follow me. Yeah, I know your dog will follow you, but he's an animal, she's an animal. She cannot be trusted. We have to be the humans with the brain behind it. So that's one of the recommendations I make. We make a point of saying that in our budget, we have enough money for the fence. Otherwise, we can't have a DOLA because it's irresponsible of us to do that. Then the second point I'd like to make is that the parking, and that's a very valid thing, parking can cost a lot of money. If we can work out the parking to be something with De Anza College, we can possibly use that area for something like pickleball, which seems to be a noisy game, but obviously enjoyed by a lot of people. So obviously, we're not going to take out pickleball, but could be a potential area for that. So something to consider, I think, would be some, be a suggestion, sort of thinking out of the box. From what I saw on the plan, there were like 2 areas where you could reserve for two picnic areas. Were there any non-reserving areas, or were there any picnic areas which are, okay, so maybe if we can find some more, lots of benches just under trees and stuff like that. So, people can just go out there, read a book, hang loose, just opportunities. I know there are a lot of trees in there, but I think that should be the primary purpose of having a park, I would imagine. Those are pretty much all my comments.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vergor. Vice Chair Sharon.
Thank you, Chair Stanek, and thank you again to staff and to the consultant. I'm really pleased to see in this plan that the bike routes through the park have been modified so bikes are not using the parking lot as a travel path. I think that's awesome, actually, and that the central intersection in the park considers traffic flow both ways. It appears that the shifting of the parking lot's a minor change. I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the stuff. It looks like some paint, a little concrete, not a ton. So I'm not so worried about that. I'm happy to see that the pickleball courts have been moved away from the residences, which is a real positive. One of the public made a comment that they are allowed, and they are. So I'm really glad that the residents will not have the pickleball courts right next to their houses. I had a concern about, I think I brought this up earlier, a duplication of amenities. One of the options was a bike traffic garden. And we don't have one in any of our Cupertino parks. And it was a top item in the workshop, and it was more popular than bocce and the parking, according to the bar charts that I saw on the online surveys. And but those were included. So I have a concern that maybe it would be nice to have things that we don't have in other parks. Again, the comments about natural park space. I want to make sure that we are considering what we're doing here in the realm of not only our master plan that Chair Stanek mentioned, but also in our climate action goals, which is encouragement of active transportation, whether it's walking, biking, scootering, et cetera, to the park. And by building another parking lot, we know that means that's going to encourage more driving. I remember we had a parking study too, and I recall that we had a deficit during events, but there wasn't a deficit on the daily basis. So that's the other thing, is that parking lots tend to be urban deserts, and they increase heat. And of course, our summers are getting hotter. So I'm not really for another parking lot. I am really glad to see the fenced DOLA. I hear what Commissioner Bigger is saying. We've heard a lot over the past year. People love our DOLAs. But I do disagree on whether or not they need to be fenced. I think in this location, absolutely. It's surrounded by a lot of things, fenced. It doesn't matter where it is. That's good. But there are parks. You go to Jollyman. I've been to all the different DOLA trials, and over again, I just show up on my bike. And because some of them, the parks are relatively big, it's not really an issue, even without the fencing. So I don't think fencing always needs, but I am glad to see that there's fencing here. And I agree, dirt is never going to work for dogs. So last, I just want to make a note. On page 16, the schematic of bike routes shows Stelling having class 4 lanes, and they don't. They only have class 2 lanes. So they're kind of like Mary, but without the protected inside parking. They're just regular painted lanes. So you might want to update that before you show it to council. So those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I had a question about the upgrades at the amphitheater. Are those defined yet?
Thank you, Chair. For this, what we're doing in this concept plan, there's not details. And actually, I'm sure Gates has been thinking about what they'd like to see in terms of enhancements. They might have more comments, but we did have the Memorial Park Amphitheater project where we were planning to make a number of functional upgrades to the facility, including electrical upgrades, stage upgrades, enhancing the accessibility, enhancing the bathroom facility that's adjacent to it. So that, in my mind, those are things that are definitely in the works, being considered.
Okay, and the access, the path in front of it, was that considered to be changing, between the seating and the staging?
Having a path between the stage and the seating, that is no bueno.
Which is what we have.
Yeah. So that would definitely be one of the enhancements. Yeah.
Okay.
The path can go around the backside.
Right.
Of the stage.
No, that sounds awesome. Thank you. And so then, I hear that the DOLA users, it sounds like they are definitely looking for fencing. One of the things that we've always tried to do, especially with our limited resources, is this concept of sharing our resources. And so what I was looking at, when we're fencing it in, if it's only for the DOLA area, then it really tends to make it small. But if there are some amenities that are duplicated in various parts of the park, maybe even a picnic area, that we could include that within the DOLA fenced area. That there are lots of people who like to be around the dogs, and so they don't care that they need to be separate from the dogs. They may not even be part of the DOLA, but they like the dogs or they're happy to go there. So maybe if we could include some of those shared resources within the DOLA, we could make the DOLA bigger and also have more amenities in it, so that you can separate those people who want to be separated, either on the person side or the dog side, and those people who are okay with both, we can have that flexibility to have the area. So that was just one of my thoughts about that. I think other than that, the direction, I do agree with the parking concepts, because if there's an event, you need more parking than we're going to be providing anyway. And so those are the times when we need to go to De Anza or Mary Avenue, which we use a lot. And so yeah, that's a really tough call. It's like, what are we really accomplishing, and what do we expect to be seeing in terms of the activity at Memorial Park? Does the parking at the senior center all need to be dedicated to senior center? Can we be looking at all, because right now it is, in that half of it at least, and so there's very little parking. So if we could make it more mixed use, if you will, I'm all for mixed use of various things, flexibility to give us options. So I think those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is a lot of work, and I really appreciate you coming back to the commission. I know that was not, that was not in the plan initially, and I begged a little bit, and so hopefully you see this as a dry run before you go to council, and you can get your thoughts together. Vice Chair Sharon.
I just wanted to ask a question. How will what we've discussed here tonight be shared with the council?
That's a good question.
I was going to say, your recommendations tonight will be included in the staff report, so that they can see what recommendations you have provided for the conceptual plan that will be going to them.
Great. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, and we look forward to your presentation to council and where it goes in the future. I know the budgeting is going to be big to see, and we're all concerned about budgets, and so that's not something that we're here tonight to really weigh in on, but we'll see where our city takes us.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to, what do we have next? We have staff and commission reports. We received Vice Chair's report from the mayor's meeting. Thank you very much. We did not receive the mayor's report from Commissioner Swamy that she had said she would send to us. At this point, it's old information, so that's, I guess, I appreciate the update that we have received, and I hope that we'll get other updates. Do we have any other commission reports?
I'd just like to make a quick comment about the mayor's meeting. It was shifted, the time was shifted at the last minute, so there were a couple absent commissioners there, because I think it kind of caught several of us by surprise. So, sorry.
It was a very complete report, so I really appreciate that. Commission report? No commission report. Any other activities? Well, I can report that today I participated, as well as the vice chair, in the pride flag raising here at City Hall. It was a delightful event. A lot of people turned out, and it was really nice to see the community turn out and show their support. I did participate, and I think Vice Chair Sharon actually commented. I had some discussions with the council members regarding the community grant funding that was presented to them in their budget meeting last month. And with respect to that, there were some things that I represented the commission on in terms of the presentation of what we had recommended, and I gave the context because there was a recommendation from staff to reduce what we had recommended by 25% across the board. I presented some of the historical data that we were well below, like 30% of historical numbers, and so we had already really done a much smaller recommendation than previous years. And also, But to the extent that council wanted to do less, I wanted to make sure that they knew, as we had discussed, that they should move up from the bottom, that our recommendation was prioritized for them, that it shouldn't just be a cut across the board of what was recommended. And I believe in that meeting, their recommendation was to do the full amounts that we had recommended for all of the organizations that we had put in. So I believe that will be on their budget coming up on June 6th, that they will be giving their final approval for. So I did want to bring up that I was involved and discuss that with the council members. Vice Chair Sharon, did you have something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I went to an Ask a Master Gardener program at the community garden at Blackberry Farm, and it was fantastic. So when they have it again, I encourage everybody to go. It was free. I got all my questions answered. So
okay.
It was really great.
Okay, so we'll go ask for the director's report.
Okay, first is a project update. The basketball court, the full-size basketball court and the small community garden at Wilson Park are now completed. And there will be a ribbon cutting ceremony for both of them on Friday, June 9th at 11 a.m. outside the community gardens at 10298 South Portal Avenue. And the garden is right across from the ceramic studio at Wilson Park. Our event updates: this past Saturday, May 27th, the Blackberry Farm pools opened for the season with 161 swimmers in attendance. Recreational swim is now open on weekends from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and will be open Tuesday through Sunday starting on June 27th. The summer concert series begins on June 15th and takes place every Thursday through September 7th from 6:30 to 8 at the Memorial Park Amphitheater. And don't forget the Disco at Dusk intergenerational event. Get your bell bottoms and your mini skirts out. Friday, June 23rd from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Cupertino Senior Center. Our summer registration is ongoing. The city has many activities, summer camps, and classes planned for all ages, from toddlers to adults 50 and over. For more information, visit cupertino.org/recreation.
Thank you. One other thing, I did want to thank all the commissioners that participated in and took their certificate for the commissioner handbook training. We still have one commissioner who has not completed that, and that was a request last month, and so that's disappointing, but hopefully we will get there soon. So let's move on to upcoming meetings, the mayor's meeting agenda.
Yes, so I can give a rundown of the upcoming meetings if that would be helpful.
Yes, please.
So June 14th, we have Commissioner Begor, and they did change the time to 4:30 p.m.
Oh.
And then July 12th, we have Chair Stanek. August 9th, we have Commissioner Butch. And September 13th, Commissioner Swamy.
I would like to ask if there's someone who could swap with me in July, because I may or may not be here.
I can try.
So you're already doing
I'm doing
June.
Yeah, then I'll be off for 6 months, 4 months.
Keep your button on. So, well, let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be easier just for you to switch because you're this month.
Yeah. Oh.
I could do June
Can
14th.
you do that,
Yes.
14th?
Okay, so why don't I take June 14th and
Okay,
you'll
great.
take July.
I was actually planning to do both, but that'll be perfect.
That'll work.
Didn't think of
Okay,
that.
at 4:30. I think that works.
Okay, so June 14th, now we
Yes.
have Chair Stanek, and that meeting's at 4:30, so I will make sure I get the Zoom information to you. And then July 12th, we will have Commissioner Begor. Okay.
And then the ones after that are?
August 9th is Commissioner Butch, and September 13th is Commissioner Swamy.
Okay, hopefully that still works. And on future agenda setting, right now we know that we don't have a meeting in July, and so nothing to put on there. And if there's nothing else.
Perhaps maybe we have one less field, or do we still have the Ragnart field, given that there's a private school that's going to be there? Maybe we should look at field.
We still have Ragnart. The school that's going to be there is there during school hours. So it's still
Okay.
part of the agreement. There is an agreement with the school district that would have to actually be renegotiated if something changed. So everything's the same
so
right now.
everything's the same. Okay. Okay, good.
Okay, if that's it, then we'll adjourn the meeting at 8:24. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.